So this was originally supposed to be just a little side thought that I was going to include for my Larry Boy and Riverweed video, but I kept getting more thoughts that unfolded until I basically wrote a whole other video essay. So I'm going to dedicate this video for those thoughts instead and get everything out now. That being said, my mind jumped to what this main thesis is about now, since it's not a specific VeggieTales episode. And I realized that the question I want to address is what made VeggieTales stand out from every other animated show or movie. This is not supposed to be a retrospective, I did that already, but I want to address what I think made this series different in a good way, besides the obvious that it was made by a Christian company and also founded on groundbreaking technology. I'm talking about the writing specifically, and the foundations of what made this company great to begin with, starting with the man himself, Phil Vischer. Not gonna lie guys, he's got some edginess to him, and of course Mike Naraki is included with this statement as well, but not in the sense where they would put inappropriate jokes in the script to make a cheap laugh. But Phil specifically would go the non-conventional route when it came to the base set of what made VeggieTales its own distinct identity. Like for instance, when he was coming up with the main characters' names, he hated the idea of making them generic quote-unquote cute names like Tommy the Tomato or Kukey the Cucumber. That kind of redundant writing was in a bunch of kids' writing and still is to this day. And does that sort of thing work? Sure, but only for the short term. What you will see though is that once that kind of cutesy generic script writing comes out, it has no long-lasting emotional or cultural imprint that sticks with you, because everyone does this, or recycles it in modern media. But not Phil. He's gonna call his characters Bob and Larry, the most average Joe middle-aged names you can think of. And it works incredibly well because you have the contrast of these names that sound like your second uncles-in-law paired up with these wide-eyed, colorful, simple-looking animated characters. This same principle is used all throughout VeggieTales. At least the good shows, that is. It's also used in the main stories / music. Like for instance, Phil's use of parodies for classical literature and pop culture. No kids show was doing this kind of thing, especially in the Christian scene. This was also integrated heavily into the music, like I said before. Instead of just making a score or soundtrack with kazoos and a cute synthesizer sound, Kurt Heineke, who produced the music, will understand the script and what the intention is of what the feeling is and pull inspiration from adult genres. What's that? You want to make a riff on Batman and make it emulate Tim Burton's gothic style and make it an epic story out of it? Okay, hold my grape juice. Let me just throw together just the coolest, most epic sounding Danny Elfman inspired soundtrack you will ever hear. You know, for kids. I can say that as a viewer, young and now older, I'm taking every scene and shot from Larry Boy seriously because the show is telling me to take it seriously. It's not winking at the camera implying how stupid this really is. The story is saying that this is on par tonally with The Dark Knight. Seeing a cucumber dress up with a purple helmet and plungers for ears is now the coolest thing known to mankind because the story is telling me that this is no joke. Maybe in the first iteration it was previously, but now we are leaning into the reality of suspension of disbelief. Not that a cucumber is talking, but that this one-time throwaway gag is now a fully fleshed out in-universe epic gothic superhero. The music in VeggieTales will do this for all kinds of shows, pulling from all kinds of genres like 70s power rock, love ballads, parodied into love for cheeseburgers and pizza. And it's treated seriously. Elvis impersonations, Latino flamenco music, Dixieland, blues, sometimes even just straight up German-inspired polka music, are all played with the full intent of making it authentic, which in itself is also where the comedy comes from. This is one of the biggest factors that set VeggieTales apart from the rest of any other series. It stands out in a huge way, besides the heartfelt themes and messages that are exemplified in each story. Any other generic series would have just been way too cheesy or cringy with its story and character, because they don't have to try too hard to please any broad audience besides 2-year-olds. But I think this is why VeggieTales stands out among the rest, and this reason being a particularly big one. It grows up with you instead of aging out and feeling dated. It's timeless because it has timeless stories that appeal to everyone, regardless if it's a classic riff on classic literature, pop culture parody, or just retelling a good old Bible story. This is the difference between a show for families and a show for just kids. This is why we go back and watch these shows and listen to these songs and soundtracks as adults, because it's music, story, and character that are designed for all ages. And I think one of the coolest aspects of this is that kids don't have to understand the meta references or jokes to like the story. The original script for each show is still its own unique idea. Like for example, what kid is gonna understand the inspiration that Sumo the Opera or Lyle the Kindly Viking is derived from the prestigious theater directors Gilbert and Sullivan, and their classic stage plays from 1870? I sure didn't. And honestly, I'm not sure if most adults will either, but do I love them for what they are on their own? You absolutely bet I do. Is the Italian Scallion's Eye of the Tiger workout homage just a joke for the boomers and millennials who watched Rocky when they were young? Maybe partially. But to me, it was the most inspirational pump-up montage that made me want to work out for 6 hours every day of my life, always telling myself not to give up on the hardest challenges in life. This is what I mean between the fact that VeggieTales could balance the parody, the in-universe veggie story that was being told while still being heartfelt and long-lasting, that none of us who grew up with this show will ever forget. Something else that I also realize more and more is that these main characters, Bob and Larry, are quite obviously riffs on Phil and Mike's own personalities exaggerated. But I think there's more layers to this idea rather than just a fun meta joke. You can tell that it's not just the basic attributes personified in an animated character. It's also bits and pieces of Phil and Mike's real-life ambitions written in the characters, along with the show's DNA itself. Like for instance, you can tell that VeggieTales as a show is an underdog in universe, with Bob being the Kermit the Frog of the group, trying to pull everything together and executing the greatest show possible to make a positive impact for kids. Newsflash guys, that's Phil Vischer. This makes even more sense when you know his autobiography of what his real-life ambitions were as a creative leader, running a successful company to make a greater impact for entertainment in the Midwest, while at the same time trying to keep the boat above water and pulling everything together so nothing gets out of control. My point here I'm trying to conclude is that from an adult lens looking back fondly on the series with nostalgia for both the VeggieTales universe and watching behind the scenes bits, you as a viewer want to cheer this show on and keep watching it succeed with its positive influence on its audience. It was able to contend and get noticed by the big studios because of the juggernaut it became. Don't get me wrong, I love the classic Disney and Pixar movies and all the creative talent that went into making them, but you never really got the sense that they were the little guys, trying to make it big. Companies like Disney and Warner Bros. Were always huge to begin with, and you never really thought of the company as a growing industry that wanted to spread the truth into a broken world. It's really always been about money for them. And I'm not even talking about current day media corporations. This is how it was in the 90s and 2000s as well. You never got that sense with Big Idea. VeggieTales has always been humble and was very self-aware of what it was. And of course, this characteristic of the series would always use this as an easy joke to poke fun at itself, just like how Phil and Mike did it in a heartfelt way, but because they knew that there were more important things than themselves. And I think that's just amazing. Anyway, hopefully those jumbled thoughts made some sense at the end of this thing. Even though Big Idea as a studio isn't really active at all anymore, I want to make sure that this company gets the love it always deserved. I guess you could think of it like the iceberg analogy. Their service level is really great obviously, but there is definitely more to dig in on why it's even better than most remember. And I wanted to highlight some of the perhaps missed details of what made VeggieTales even more amazing. Let me know if you agree on the points I made, and until then, I'll see you next time.